Let me start with a picture you've probably lived. You're in a packed theater, lights down, everyone quiet. Then someone near the exit stands up fast and shouts, "Smoke." In under 5 seconds, people who didn't smell anything or see anything and still have no idea what's happening are already on their feet, hearts hammering, running toward the doors. Nobody explained the danger. Nobody had to. That moment is this whole episode. Because the real question isn't why do we get scared? The real question is how much of the fear you feel is actually yours? And how much did you just catch from the person next to you? As a psychologist, I've watched this exact pattern show up in therapy rooms, families, and whole communities. Fear spreads. It spreads fast. And most of the time, we never notice we caught it until it's already running the show. We're going to follow that idea all the way down, not with a textbook, with the messiest human examples I know. Your nervous system is always reading other people. Watch someone flinch and a part of you flinches. Watch a face go wide with fear and something in your body starts preparing for danger before you even know what the danger is. It's not magic. It's just how we're wired. We're social animals, and we survive by paying attention to the emotional weather around us. Fear is special, though. It travels harder and faster than most other feelings. There is a practical reason. If your group is late to notice joy, nothing terrible happens. But if your group is late to notice danger, people can die. So the system is biased toward catching fear early, even if that means catching a lot of false alarms along the way. And this starts way too early. There's a classic setup with babies. So, way back then, researchers built a table that looked like it dropped off into a steep cliff partway across. The whole surface was actually solid clear glass, completely safe. Baby on one side, mother on the other, close enough that the baby could see her face clearly. Almost every baby crawled up to the edge of the fake cliff and then stopped and looked at the mom. If she smiled and looked calm, most of them kept going. If she looked scared, almost none of them crossed, even though the glass was solid the whole time. These are babies who can't talk yet. They're already checking someone else's face to decide if the world is safe. And they're already borrowing fear. A lot of us never really stop doing that. The friend who glances around the group of friends before deciding if the joke landed. The person who waits to see how everyone else reacts before they let themselves react. Same system, bigger body. Fear can transfer without any personal experience at all. There was a work with monkeys. One group raised in the wild, normal fear of snakes. Another group raised in a lab, never seen a snake, zero fear. The lab monkeys just watched videos of the wild ones reacting with terror to the snakes. A few short sessions. That was it. Months later, the lab monkeys were still afraid of snakes. Real lasting fear from watching someone else have it. You don't always need the bite. Sometimes watching the person next to you get bitten is enough. You can catch fear the same way you catch a yawn. Your body is built for it. Now, here's a story about when that borrowed fear gets loose in a real town. Mattoon, Illinois, summer 1944, World War II is on. Most of the young men are gone. The local paper has been running stories about possible enemy prisoners escaping from a nearby camp. People are already tense. One night, a woman wakes up to a strange sweet smell, and then her legs go numb. She's convinced someone sprayed gas into her room. The paper puts it out on the front page the next morning. Phantom attacker with a spray gun. Within days, more reports came in, and then more. Nearly 30 households, some people so overcome they need medical help. that men start walking the streets at night with guns looking for the mad gasser, or sometimes called the phantom gasser. The police chief has to get on the radio and beg people to stop shooting at shadows because they're going to kill their own neighbors by accident. National magazines pick it up. Soldiers overseas write home asking if their families are safe. No gas or attacker. There's not even a spray gun. What they eventually figure out was it was just industrial odor coming from a nearby plant. So mix that with wartime nerves and one very convincing newspaper story. The fear jumped house to house the same way a real chemical would have, except the only thing spreading was the idea. Grown adults, armed, hunting fog. That's what contagious fear looks like when it hits a real community. You've probably heard the War of the Worlds version, Orson Welles, Halloween 1938. Radio play formatted like a live news broadcast about Martians invading. The legend says the whole country panicked. The actual story is more interesting. Only a small slice of the country was listening. A lot of the people who got most frightened weren't the ones who heard the broadcast. They heard about the panic from a neighbor, a friend, phone call, whatever. The newspapers, who were already worried about radio stealing their advertising money, made it sound much bigger than it was. But some real fear did move that night. Phones jammed and people left their homes. And the way it moved is the key. Not one giant broadcast scaring millions at once, but a smaller spark passed person to person, getting more dramatic with every retelling. That's the pattern. Once a scary story starts moving, it almost never stays the same. Unfamiliar detail drop out. And the confusing part gets smoothed into something that feels more complete and maybe more emotional sometimes. By the fifth or sixth person, it's already the version that feels most true, even when it's drifted further from what actually happened. Nobody has to lie on purpose. The brain just hates an empty gap. It fills it, then confidently passes the filled in version along. You see the same thing in real emergencies when people don't know which way to run. They don't do careful calculations. They look at which way the crowd is already moving and they follow. Even when a clear exit is closer, the sign is right there, but they look at other people. And even if the crowd is heading toward the more dangerous option. Uncertainty makes the crowd's direction feel like the information, and they think they must know something I don't. Take away clear information, and the herd usually wins. Up to now, the fear has been spreading on its own. Now we get to the part that should make you sit up straighter. Sometimes one person learns how to build it and aim it. The clearest modern example is the man who built a religious community in the middle of the last century. People who met him said he was warm, charismatic, made you feel seen within minutes. That warmth was the door. And we talked about this in the cult episode, Jonestown. Once people were in, he started cutting them off from family and outside friends, moving the group farther from anyone who might pull them back. Then he started inventing external threats, like forces that were coming for them, and he could only protect them. Fear became the glue. He became the only exit and their protector. They ended up in a remote settlement in South America. He ran night drills, wakes everyone up, tells them the enemies are almost here. This might be the night that they all have to die together to avoid something worse. Sometimes they even drank liquid that were told was poison, only to be told afterward it was just a test. Each drill trained the group's nervous system that this cycle of fear and relief was normal. So when the real version came in November 1978, the fear itself wasn't new, it was practiced. Over 900 people died, many by their own hand or a parent's hand, following a man a lot of them had once believed was the safest person they've ever known. Charisma wasn't covering up the danger. In cases like this, charisma is the delivery system for the danger, and the fear it creates gets pointed outward at the outside world, at doubt, or at anyone who might help you leave. That's why walking away from something like that doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like stepping off a ledge because the thing that's hurting you has also become the thing your body now links with safety. You're not weak for finding that hard. You're responding to an environment that was designed, sometimes carefully, to make leaving feel like the most dangerous option. And we also talked about urgency, if you remember. And that makes it even more powerful. Anything framed as running out, closing, last chance, we treat this more important. That includes information. You have to act now. This is the only safe place left. You get it. The ticking clock shuts down the slower part of your brain that would normally sit with a claim and check it. Fear plus urgency is much harder to walk away from than fear alone. Here's the turn. If fear spreads so easily, what happens when the whole group is wrong at the same time? There's a classic experiment that shows how far this can go. One person sits in a room full of people who are secretly in on it. They're shown a simple line and asked which of the three other lines match it. The answer is obvious. One by one, the planted people all give the same wrong answer out loud. Then it's the real person's turn. A striking number of people eventually give the wrong answers too. Their eyes were working the whole time, but standing alone against a whole room of confident people feels worse than being wrong with them. And after, most admitted they knew the right answer the entire time. They just couldn't bring themselves to say it out loud. I know you're thinking, that's stupid, I would never do this. But I think you've done a version of this. Nodded along in a meeting when something felt off, stayed quiet because everyone else seemed fine with it. That social cost is real to your nervous system, and fear almost never arrives as a calm multiple choice question. It comes already wrapped in other people's certainty, a room that's already convinced, a comment section that's already sure, or a crowd that's already running. Standing against that is expensive, so a lot of people don't. The same system can also spread the opposite of fear, and that can be just as dangerous. In one experiment, they pumped smoke into a room while people filled out a questionnaire. People sitting alone were noticing and reported it quickly. But people sitting with a group who had been told to stay calm and keep working mostly stayed put too, even while coughing and waving smoke away from their faces. After, many of them said they figured it must be steam or the air conditioning because nobody else seemed worried. Everyone was privately unsure and was looking at everyone else for a cue. And everyone else was doing the exact same thing. So a room full of uneasy people showed itself as a room full of calm people. The warning got smothered instead of amplified. Calm can be contagious too. Sometimes that's the problem. You saw a pure modern version of this during the early pandemic. Toilet paper disappeared off shelves across whole countries. There was no real shortage in the supply chain yet. A few people bought extra because things felt uncertain. Pictures of empty shelves spread online, and every person who saw those pictures updated their own behavior. Were they out of toilet paper at home? No. It was because everyone else's fear had become visible proof that maybe they should be scared too. Buying extra stopped looking crazy and started looking smart, which of course created the shortage. Nothing about the virus itself touched the toilet paper supply. Fear did, shelf to shelf, city to city, the same way it moved bank to bank during the Depression. That story, I'll say it quick. There was a fear about banks going bankrupt, so the whole thing spread, and people took their money out. So the banks did get bankrupt. So anyway, yeah, this whole toilet paper thing was stupid. Someday, future historians are going to look at those MTL photos and wonder what we were doing. Somewhere an alien is going to decide that was our most sacred resource based on evidence, and it's hard to blame them. I hope you know I'm joking right now. So, where does this leave us? Fear that starts in your own body because of something you've actually lived through deserves your full attention. It's information, and it's trying to keep you alive. But fear that arrives secondhand from a crowd or a headline, algorithm, or that charismatic person who makes isolation feel like safety deserves a harder look before you let it drive. Next time a wave of fear moves through a room, a group chat, or a family dinner, pause for 1 second. Ask where it started, and ask if you've personally verified the danger or you just caught it off someone else's face, someone else's story. There's one practical tool that actually helps. It's basically emotional vaccination. If you show someone a weakened version of a manipulative argument ahead of time and walk them through exactly how the manipulation works, they get better at spotting the full strength version later. Short exercises that reveal the tactic used to build panic and outrage make people more resistant afterward. Across different ages and backgrounds, the mechanism matches everything we talked about. Fear spreads fastest through a surprise and through gaps in understanding. And then show someone the trick in advance in a low stakes kind of way, and there's less surprise left and less of a gap for panic to fill. It's not perfect, but it's one of the few things that slows the spread before it reaches you. Here's what I want you walking away with. The deadliest fear usually isn't the one that started in you. It's the one you borrowed and then forgot to give it back. Check the source always. Ask who benefits if you stay afraid. And remember, just because the whole room is running doesn't mean the building is on fire. Thank you for being here in the Dominion. I'll see you in the next one.